Oh, ahoy there! Set a course for adventure, because Ixalan pre-release is just days away, and though this is bringing many exciting things to standard and also taking several things out, BFZ block rotating, excuse me, I'm most excited about what Ixalan is bringing to my favorite format, Modern. Presented here are the top 5 cards from Ixalan likely to have an impact on the Modern format, as well as an honorable mention. But before I hit this list, I want to tell you about some pirate booty that I'm just giving away. If you're a subscriber to Tolarian Community College, then you can enter for free for a chance to win an Ixalan booster box, an Ixalan bundle, and one of each of the Ixalan intro packs. I mean Planeswalker packs. I mean Planeswalker decks. That's right, all things Ixalan can be yours, just by clicking on the link in this video's description. And you can get a second entry ticket just by following me on Twitter. Good luck, me mateys. Alright, before we get to the true top 5 list for Modern, I have an honorable mention, and it is a card very near and dear to my heart. That's right, it's my own almost preview card, Kopala, Warden of Waves. As you may remember from my preview video, Kopala, Warden of Waves, is a 2/2 merfolk wizard for 1 and 2 blue that reads, spells your opponent's cast that target a merfolk you control cost 2 more to cast. Abilities your opponents activate that target a merfolk you control cost 2 more to activate. This is an obvious parallel to the merfolk mainboard mainstay of Kira Great Glass Spinner, a flying spirit who, for the same mana cost and the same power and toughness, flat out counters spells and activated abilities the first time they target a creature you control. While Kopala may seem like a strictly worse version of Kira, and in many ways it is, the advantage here comes from the fact Kopala is a merfolk and not a spirit, thus enabling itself and other cards in Modern Merfolk the benefit of tribal synergy. Given Island Walk and a stronger power and toughness from Lords, or triggering Marrow Reejery, and still adding a fairly strong protection to your creatures, makes Kopala a strong contender for replacing Kira. While obviously it's still too early to be seen whether Kopala will be the better card for Merfolk long term, the real reason why this is only an honorable mention is that Merfolk itself is currently drowning in Modern. Merfolk, once a solid tier 2 deck, has sunk somewhat in the current meta, and while devotees such as myself are still following our fishy dreams, this list of Modern offerings in Ixalan seems to indicate the current meta isn't changing dramatically anytime soon. Nonetheless, Merfolk has always been the dark horse of Modern, and that which is tier 2 can never die. So Kopala is extremely noteworthy nonetheless. But let's talk about some cards that are going to have a real impact on Modern. Coming in at number 5 on our list, it's the land that has a genuine edge over tectonic edge, and that is Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin is a land that can tap to add 1 colorless to your mana pool. For 2 of any color, you can tap it and sacrifice Field of Ruin to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. Determining Field of Ruin's modern worth means comparing it to both Ghost Quarter and Tectonic Edge. Tectonic Edge is run in decks like Mono Blue Tron, Modern Death and Taxes, and some white-blue control builds. In comparing it to Field of Ruin, we see Field has a higher activation cost by 1, but does not require 4 or more lands to be controlled by our opponent. In addition, it offers a form of fixing by replacing itself with a land of our choice. The biggest advantage to Field is that it is land hate that does not set you back a turn. When paired with cards like Aven Mind Sensor or Leonin Arbiter, you get flat-out land destruction without getting set back yourself. Heck, you can even do a little bit of fixing. While potentially a superior Tectonic Edge in this regard, when compared to Ghost Quarter, however, the advantages greatly diminish. Ghost Quarter's free activation cost is just too tough to beat, and decks like Tron and Lantern Control aren't going to want Field of Ruin in its place. Nonetheless, I think Field will become a choice in most situations over Tectonic Edge, but ultimately, Quarter is still king. But who knows, maybe we'll even finally see a viable land destruction deck come out in Modern as a result of this card. Moving along on our list to number 4, I want to search for something with just a bit more relevance, and that search is going to lead us to Azcanta. For 1 and a blue, you get a legendary enchantment that reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform, search for Azcanta. Before we even get to the transformed ability, this by itself is great for dumping cards in your bin. In the right deck, this is better than a scry effect, because with scry effects, you normally have to tuck the unwanted card back in your library. But here you can just toss spells in the graveyard for all kinds of options. Put what you want in your hand, bury what you want in the graveyard. Actually, in many ways, what we see here is reminiscent of the front side of Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. But being an enchantment means it can't be hit so easily by removal. Now, the flipped side is a legendary land that taps for blue, but also allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your library for 2 and a blue. If you do, you may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is obviously significantly worse than a flipped Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, and it's much more reminiscent of a slightly costly impulse effect. However, its non-flipped side has such potential gas that I feel strongly this is going to see play, especially in Esper and possibly Scapeshift builds. So only time will tell if as can or as can't, but in the meanwhile, we're on to number 3, and that is Sorceress Spyglass. Sorceress Spyglass is an artifact that costs 2 and reads, as Sorceress Spyglass enters the battlefield, look at an opponent's hand, then choose any card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. As I said, the obvious comparison here is with Pithing Needle, and just like Pithing Needle, this is good against just about any matchup, making it applicable to most decks. Being able to peek at your opponent's hand and use that knowledge to name one of their key pieces or potential bombs is already great. But what I'm more excited about is the potential misery this can inflict when used against fetch lands. You see, a fetch land tapping to go search for a land is of course not a mana ability. So naming a fetch land your opponent is holding is brutal, especially early game. Heck, a Simian's Spirit Guide lets you drop this turn 1 on the play, which is some real bad beats. The applications are flexible and encompass most of Modern. Most decks are going to be able to run this at least in the sideboard, and I am incredibly excited to see what Spyglass can and will do. Alright, coming in at number 2, it's a very perilous pick, and no, it's not Perilous Voyage. I say perilous because this is a card that is either going to have a major impact in Modern, or none at all. If this takes, it's going to take big. That's because they reprinted Gaia's Cradle. They didn't reprint Gaia's Cradle? Okay. They reprinted something very close, and the question is, can we flip it? For 2 and a green, a legendary enchantment that reads, when Growing Rites of Itlamok enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Growing Rites of Itlamok. So that by itself is kind of meaningless, and our goal is to flip this fast. Flip it good. The transformed side is Gaia's Cradle. Tap for 1 green or tap to add 1 green for each creature you control. The most obvious home for this is Modern Elves, which is already a fast, hard to deal with deck, whose mono green version is actually pretty affordable right now, by the way. In Modern Elves, it's really not that difficult to drop something like a Llanowar Elves turn 1, and then on turn 2, a Heritage Druid and hopefully a 2nd mana Dork, meaning that you now have a total of 4 mana available. Elves are filled with 1-drops, so add another Llanowar or an Arbor Elf or whatever, and then 3 mana remains for you to drop Growing Rites, have 4 creatures in play on turn 2, and thus transform it again on turn 2 as you pass. Turn 2 Gaia's Cradle with Modern Elves? Yes, please. Will it push Elves or perhaps a Collected Company green build over the top? If it does, it will be huge, but only time will tell. Alright, are you ready for the number 1 card most likely to see Modern play from Ixalan? Well, it happens to bookend my list really nicely because it's my actual factual preview card, Opt. An instant for 1 blue, Opt lets you scry 1, which of course means look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. Draw a card. What we have here is an instant speed cantrip for Modern. This is an old card that has lots of applications. It's over 15 years old, in fact, and being reprinted in Ixalan now for the first time makes it Modern legal. Now, a lot of people are going to compare this as a potential replacement for cards like Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand, and that's one of those cases where it's a long debate about just which is the most effective. In builds that run these cards, you're gonna see all kinds of mixtures that will eventually settle on a nice recipe. But there's other potential uses for this as well, helping out decks like Infect and Scapeshift. But no matter where and how it sees play, Opt is going to see play in Modern, be it finding a place in existing decks or possibly powering out something from the fringe to the forefront. But now I want to hear from you. Which cards from Ixalan do you think are going to be the most likely to see play in Modern, and where exactly are we going to see them? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're doing that, don't forget to click on my entry link for a free chance to win an Ixalan booster box, an Ixalan bundle, and one of each of the Ixalan Planeswalker intro deck packs. That is free with international shipping to one lucky subscriber. Just click on the link and treasure ho! And this program was made possible thanks to a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. So thank you.